and welcome to this installment of Frank and Mary here in Westborough. If you haven't seen the show before, my name is Art Bergeron, and my day job is as an elder law attorney. I actually work right here in Westborough at Myrick O'Connell. But this is not about my day job. It is about my friends Frank and Mary, who I always talk about when I do presentations. Frank and Mary's goal in their life is to live in their house until they die and be buried in the backyard. And if that means you're in Westborough, that means you want to stay right here. You don't want to go live with your kids far away. You're just very happy. So the question is, if you identify with that goal in life, who are the people you need to know? What are the programs you need to know about in order to stay right here? And what we've always tried to focus on are not just programs for people who are only dealing with seniors, but programs in people in which, about which seniors really should be interested. You should really be interested in this guest, whom we have seen before. Of course, you're especially interested in my co-host, whom we never get to see, right? We've seen her a couple of times. My friend Karen Henderson is here pinch hitting because Shelby Marshall is actually away with family in Maine right now. But we have a terrific guest whom we had also had visit with us not too long ago before she became the Democratic nominee for the position of state rep in the state rep district that was carefully crafted to basically be Westborough. Westborough and a few other kind of adjunct places. So we've asked Kate to be back on now as the candidate, and I've talked to Shelby about this for a while, and we talked about having questions that we could ask Kate and that we will also ask her Republican opponent in a few weeks. And actually in a few weeks, I'll be on vacation on Martha's Vineyard, so we're hoping that Karen Henderson is going to be able to pinch hit, in that case with Shelby, in order to do that interview. So Karen, first of all, thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you, Arthur.
This is always exciting.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
And Kate, I know that you try to always be meeting with new people, and so you're stuck here with two people that you already know, right?
No, both of
and
you
you're not,
for a long time.
So, but thank you for taking some time from knocking on doors, right? So I know we're going to be asking you some questions that are similar to the questions that we talked about the last time, but really, once again, we want to be using those questions so that everybody gets to answer the same questions. I'm actually going to cluster the first two together, right? What made you decide to run for state representative, and what is your greatest strength? What is the greatest strength that you bring to this position, and why?
Well,
that's a lot.
It
right?
is. So what made me decide to run was that there was an opportunity to serve. There was, as you referenced, a new seat with no incumbent. I think we've got some great legislators, none of whom I felt a need to run against. And with the new district, no incumbent, it was a great opportunity to run, to be a voice for the people of Westborough and the neighbors. I've been a member of the Westborough community for almost 50 years. And
Did you say 50, 50? 50.
I moved here.
So you're not quite a local, but
I moved here when
you were 10?
I moved here when I was 19.
19?
I did my last 2 years of college while I was living here with my fiance and eventual husband, back when 19-year-olds had fiancés. So, but yes, I want to be a voice for the community that has given me so much. I want to be a voice for seniors. I am a senior citizen, as well as a voice for people.
You didn't just dye your hair for the show? No?
As well as for people struggling with substance use disorder. That's something very near and dear to my heart. And just to be a voice for the people here and their needs, primarily, and we'll be getting to this in some of the later questions, but to be a voice in the important issues around health care, fighting climate change, and education. So those are issues that are very important to me, and I ran to be a voice for people here. And the second question was, what strengths do I bring?
Yeah.
And the strengths that I bring are so many. My lived experience. I have lived experience with healthcare, which, as I talked about, I have, I talked about this more extensively in the last meeting. My husband had just passed away of cancer, and the issues with my son struggling with substance use disorder. And so
Which are not uncommon.
Not uncommon at all.
Both issues, seniors facing partners who've got problems, and parents facing children who have problems, right?
And I hear it as I go door to door. Monday was my 200th day going door to door, which was kind of hard to believe. And as I've been going door to door, I've heard from the people. I've heard from people who are caring for their parents. My mom's 93, and caring for parents. I've heard from people struggling with daycare issues. I've heard with people struggling with insurance issues. I've heard from people who have special needs children who are aging out of the system and the challenges there. And I want to be an advocate for people. My strengths include the fact that I have so much experience. I've been involved in town government. I've been involved in municipal government. I have a lot of experience working with elected officials, and I have a lot of experience working in private industry. I spent most of my career in private industry, and so I think that those strengths are important, as well as, and I think this is really important for a first-year rep, I've got very strong relationships with people currently people in the State House from all over the state because of my advocacy for many, many years.
And I think that may be one of the reasons why when the seat got created, I think probably the most common question in Westborough was, well, who's going to run if Kate Donaghue doesn't run? Because
very well
it was
known.
right. It was just
Very well known.
assumed that Kate is because you've been such a presence, and really an active and always a positive presence. There were so many people. There were so many times you have people who have been a presence for a long time, but in a negative way, but just always in a positive way, which has been wonderful.
It was very gratifying being at the polls yesterday with so many people saying to me, "Oh, you've done so much. You've done so much," and you don't always think of it that. You just think you're doing what needs to be done.
Right.
Sure.
And I heard you beat the blanks by a big margin.
Yeah, congratulations.
I beat the
on your
blanks.
win.
Congratulations.
But that's great. But so we got a little bit toward the Westborough point, and you talked about your varied history, but specifically for Westborough, what are the key issues for residents like myself in town that you see, and how would you go about advocating for those?
Well, I think that I thought about that question because my mind went a little more towards Westborough specific issues, but the issues for Westborough are really the issues for the whole state. They are healthcare, they are education, they are climate change, and in terms of how I would go about advocating, it's what you would think. There are some specific issues that there's some specific, programs that I think would be helpful, in terms of fighting substance use disorder. But I think that, in general, the way I would go about advocating is the same way that I would go about advocating for anything. I have strong relationships with, as I mentioned before, with so many legislators that in the House of Representatives, which is arguably, it's structured to be, there's a lot of strength and leadership. But because of my strong relationships with people, I can get more done in advocating with different individuals. I also have strong relationships with advocacy organizations throughout the state, and that's another way that I will be able to get things done for the issues here in Westborough that really, really matter. Healthcare, education, fighting climate change, and those are the ways that I would advocate for Westborough, as well as Southborough, Northborough, and sub-precinct 21A of Framingham.
and I suppose a piece of that would really relate to the fact that you do know so many folks there because of your experience, that you're not coming in as a freshman. You get to be you're bringing in a lot of you get a lot of credits for what you've already done, specifically in terms of the relationships with the legislature. I know the reason why we met originally was my cousin Bob Duran was originally a state rep and then a senator and later Secretary of Environmental Affairs. And so I watched him and really got to appreciate during his state rep days the fact that you're the state rep. You're like, in Marlborough terms, the ward counselor. You're needing to deal with global issues, but you're also the person who needs to take care of the specific the problems, right? The real problems. The 95-year-old lady who called me and said, I need to get a real ID because I go to visit my daughter and I don't have a birth certificate because of this and that. And the spelling was wrong on the birth certificate. And she said, what do I do? And I said, I know this is going to not sound like what you're supposed to do. Call your state rep.
That's
right?
so true.
I said, you will never, ever get this figured out on your own. Starting from the bottom in the registry, it will never happen, right? But if from somewhere above, there is somebody who is advocating for you, this is the kind of thing that can be taken care of.
A lot of people
right?
don't realize it, but because of all of my time in advocacy, I know how to connect people, and I get call after call saying, oh, Jim McGovern's office took care of this for me. Jenny Eldridge's office took care of this for me. Carolyn Dykema's office took care of this for me.
And they can't believe it, right? People
don't
come
realize
on,
it.
They really did, right?
I mean, you talk about substance use disorder. I'd have parents desperate for beds, and I'd say, call your state senator, call your state rep. Who do you know better? And this one woman credited the fact that I suggested that to her, and she connected with her state senator. Her son got a bed out of Spectrum. He was in Spectrum, and I've lost touch with her since I'm not in that world anymore, but he had like 5 years of sobriety. And she credited that with the fact that I said, call your state senator.
But it was a way of there was a way of finding access. It was a way of actually kind of getting folks into the system.
Right.
So, my next question, right?
Yes.
The next question that I get to
Yes.
do. So, if you're elected, and I suppose you've kind of talked about some of these things. What committees would you want to be on? Obviously, as you say, it's in the House. It's kind of there's real strong leadership orientation. But
obviously,
where would you like to be?
Obviously, I can't make anything saying it that's because I want this. This is what I'll get. But my first choice would be the Joint Committee on Mental Health and Substance Use and Recovery. That's obviously an issue that we've talked about and very important. The other two committees that I've been thinking about, and people are giving me advice on, well, this isn't a good place for a freshman, or this you'd never get appointed to, but transportation. Transportation is huge to the people in Westborough.
Absolutely.
And it's something where it involves so many things, and transportation impacts so many aspects of life. And education. Education is once again a very, very important issue to the people in Northborough, Southborough, Westborough, and Framingham. As you know, many people move to Northborough, Southborough, and Westborough. You talked about Bob Durand. I was getting to know people in Marlborough, and people from Marlborough would be calling me when Bob was first running here. I want a lawn sign. I want this. I used to live in Marlborough. Why did you move here? Every single person, education, education, education. Not
Really
that there's
big deal.
anything wrong with the education in Marlborough.
But it's very good here.
Very
But
good.
Yeah,
it's just
and really important to people in town. I mean, Westborough has always, residents have come out and always been really supportive of that school budget and take a lot of pride, and in Northborough and Southborough as well.
Again,
And in precinct 21A.
Well,
Sub
I don't know
precinct
about
21.
So another question we wanted to ask you about was just for those undecided voters. So of course you're running against John Hostage is the Republican
I like to think of it, we're
candidate.
both running for the same office.
Sure, okay, we'll put it, I like that as well. But there are undecided voters out there, and what do you have to offer them?
I have many things. I have a lot of experience, as I said, in many, many areas of life, in terms of service, in terms of working in the nonprofit area, volunteering in the nonprofit area, working in the private sector, working in government. My experience, having testified at the State House many times, I was at an interview where somebody who had worked up at the State House said, oh, I see you in the halls all the time. I have that kind of experience that makes a huge difference in getting things done. I have experience in again, I don't want to sound redundant, but one of the things that makes a difference is the the relationships I already have. But I also think that the people here in Northborough and Southborough and Westborough should look at the values, the things that I'm running on. Protecting a woman's right to choose, fighting climate change. There are many, many issues that substantially differentiate me from my opponent. But even if you disagree with me on some issues, I will be an advocate for everybody in Westborough. I will represent the people who voted for me, the people who didn't vote for me, the people who didn't vote. I will represent everybody, and I feel really strongly that I'm obviously I feel the issues that I support, I feel are the right positions, but I will listen to everybody. I will advocate for what I believe is what's best for the people of the 19th Worcester District as well as the people throughout the Commonwealth.
So as you're trying to do all of those things, right, you end up with kind of two really large responsibilities. One is to try to participate in the policy and all of the stuff that happens in Boston. And the other we were just talking about is kind of the constituent work, right? So as you're thinking about it going forward, so how do you balance those two? First of all, how do you find the time to do either one of them?
Right.
Because it's just so big, and this district now is so big.
Well,
you've got a lot of communities, right?
It's interesting that you say that because I will be doing this full time. I don't have any responsibilities. I'm not in a position where I have to have a law practice or an architecture practice or a medical practice. I will do this full time, no other source of paid work. I also, as we talked about, it's my life. I don't have family commitments. I'm a single person, no children, no child responsibilities.
Right.
And I just, good, bad, or indifferent, the nature of the fact that this is the position I'm in, I will be devoting full time plus. I've been a full-time candidate 7 days a week since January when I made the decision to run. I've been a full-time candidate. I'll be a full-time rep. This is my life.
Which is like an important, right. That's an important commitment because
Absolutely.
it's just so easy in those positions. Once again, I just remember from going through it with my cousin. If you don't have that ability to really kind of focus, this is one of the, you can never kind of do the extra mile, because you just don't have the time.
Right.
I appreciate people who have commitments to their families,
Right.
and it's,
But it's a lot.
not by choice. I don't have
Right.
that situation.
Sure.
Right.
Can I circle back
Yeah,
a little
yeah,
bit? Because transportation came up and about Westborough. Certainly, transportation and affordable housing are definitely a couple things that we hear about a lot. Can you talk a little bit about like the transportation issue and things that Westborough is facing in that regard, and maybe same with affordable housing, just to do like a little bit deeper dive into those?
Yeah, so affordable housing, there are a lot of issues. There are accessory. So in terms of the state, the biggest thing, if we want more affordable housing, we need more housing. That's what it comes down to. If you want more affordable housing, you just need to build more housing.
The supply and demand.
It's,
Right.
that's what needs to be done. In terms of issues specific to Northborough, Southborough, and Westborough, making it easier to do things like accessory apartments. I've been looking at some of the statistics, and there are people like me who are in the homes where I raised my family, but it's, where do you go to? And so one of the ways, given the realities of what we're doing, is making it easier for people to have other people live in their house. That's one of the things that can be done, and it's an intersection of town regulations and what the state allows in terms of how zoning changes are made.
Right.
That in terms of those kinds of issues, but we need to be able to have housing that is fits into the nature of the community. As so that we need to have more congregate housing. We talked about that a little bit earlier.
Right.
That kind of housing, if that kind of housing is available, especially affordably, that helps. It's, that's what it comes down to. In terms of transportation, this touches on climate change as well. Electrification of the commuter rail, which is a huge project, but if we electrified commuter rail,
Wow. Yeah.
it's an issue that helps fight climate change, as well as providing faster, more reliable transportation. In terms of, you were asking like Westborough specific stuff, I think that we do need to invest in public transportation is the way that we can, it's so important. If everybody's driving, we just, and I understand the challenges. I've looked at, I've never commuted into Boston on a daily basis. I have commuted in as a volunteer. And there are many, many challenges with the commuter rail. But there are many, many challenges if you're sitting there driving. I pay more to park my car than I used to pay for a night at a hotel. It's just challenging either way.
Right. Well, we are about to have that 495-90 interchange. I think is actually going to start, and that's been a long time coming. The upgrade to that.
That's been a long time.
Yeah,
So.
and I've been learning about that given my potential role, and then here in Westborough, Southborough, rebuilding the 495-9 interchange.
Right.
That's not really safe the way it is now with the businesses so near the entrance ramp to 495. But that's going to be a long time coming. But those are things that, as a state rep, I would be intimately involved in, the local issues as well as the more statewide issues.
Yep.
But I think also dealing with those statewide issues, which are really local issues in many ways, it's easy to put that off because it's not today, right?
Oh yeah.
But, the reason why it's finally happening, the 495, is that it's been planned for a long time, and finally things are occurring.
Yeah.
And I think your point is well taken regarding the affordable housing. I guess I've become struck by it because as part of my work, I go to the islands a lot. Every Thursday I go to one of the islands, either to Nantucket or to Martha's Vineyard. In both places, on a single family lot, you can have two houses. And now this was the tradition was because that was the place where your kids would come when they came to visit you during the summer, right? Or for many folks, it was the place. The way that you would make your money, most of your money for the year, is you'd either move into that little house and rent your big house, or you would rent out that little house during the summer, right? Same reason. But as a result of that, for seniors, suddenly there is this housing configuration that works great, right? That if you're getting older and one of your kids is going to move in, they don't have to really move in. Right? They can have their own house. Or if you've got a caregiver, right? If you've got a 24/7 caregiver, you don't want the 24/7 caregiver in the bathroom when you need to use it, right? Sure. So to have a kind of an independent place. But I guess...
Or even maybe the other way around.
Other way around.
I could picture myself, if I had a child, if there was a second place, hey, you come live here. And then, I'll go to the smaller house.
Yes, exactly what a client of mine is doing now. She said, oh, I'm so happy to have my son here. But when he invites his friends over, I just assume not hear right? I just assume be in the little house, right?
Sure. Yeah.
But I guess, the challenge, as you were suggesting, is to keep being open about it and to be, having the state really working with the communities in terms of trying to figure some of this stuff out, So thank you so much for this.
Yeah,
right?
This is very interesting as always.
Yeah, and we both realize this is just a real challenge. It's the fact that you've been on the road for 200 days.
Right.
Right?
Do you get to take a break? No break.
Well, here she is.
Yeah.
This is the break.
This is your break.
I would otherwise be canvassing.
That's right.
So,
That's right.
yes, no, it was 200 days. I took yesterday just at the polling places. So I can tell you, but very few days off since I began my race, but just doors every day. That's my motto.
And so we'll ask you as we'll ask the other candidate.
Yeah.
So if folks are listening to any of this and they want to follow up by having a conversation with you or emailing with you, how do they reach you?
They can reach me at katedonaghue.com, KateDonaghue. Kate is, if you remember, Donag. Kate's a good person, good. And my personal cell phone is 508-404-8531. Happy to talk to anybody. And you can email me through the website or give me a call.
So
great.
thank you so much for taking
Thank
the
you,
time.
Kate.
We really appreciate it.
Good
Thank you,
luck.
Karen Henderson,
Thanks
for kind of
for
working
letting
into
me
your new
be
career here.
Be
This
the
is
backup
real-
quarterback.
this
I
is really big.
appreciate that.
And thank you all for watching. I think obviously this is an important race. You're about to have a state rep in a district which is primarily you. So you really should take an interest in this. This is a great opportunity, and thank you for watching. We'll look forward to seeing you on the next installment of Frank and Mary here in Westborough. Thank you.